Hey everyone, welcome to Reality TV News Update, the place where we bring you the latest updates, fun moments, and behind-the-scenes stories you won't want to miss. The backyard lights shimmered against the pool water as the house guests gathered for another tense BB27 evening. Laughter floated in the air, but underneath it pulsed a quiet electricity, the kind that only came when power had shifted hands in a dramatic way. And tonight, all eyes kept drifting back to one person. Morgan. She didn't announce her presence. She didn't need to. The silver Veto necklace rested proudly against her collarbone, catching the light with every confident step she took across the yard. It wasn't loud. It wasn't flashy. It was commanding. Morgan, out there, wearing her Veto necklace. And everyone felt it. Just hours earlier, the house had exploded when Morgan pulled off one of the most unexpected Power of Veto wins of the season. No one had her pegged as a physical comp threat, least of all Vince, who had spent the entire week assuring his alliance that Morgan was harmless. But she proved them all wrong. Now she didn't need to say a word. The necklace said it for her. The shift in energy. From across the yard, Vince sat stiffly on a lounge chair, pretending to scroll through nothing on his phone. His jaw was tight. Every time Morgan laughed with Lauren near the hot tub, his eyes flicked up just long enough to remind her and everyone else that he had noticed. Because power in the Big Brother house wasn't just about nominations. It was about presence. Across from him, Kelsey leaned against the kitchen counter inside, watching through the sliding glass door. "She's not even trying to hide it," she muttered. Keanu, perched at the dining table with Ava, snorted. "Why should she? That necklace is louder than any speech we've given all season." Ava shook her head. "It's more than that. It's the way she's walking, like she knows the whole house is nervous." Keanu nodded slowly. "That's what real power looks like." Morgan's quiet revenge. If there was one thing Morgan had learned in the BB27 house, it was that survival wasn't always loud. Sometimes it was patient, sometimes it was quiet, and sometimes it was perfectly accessorized. Earlier in the week, she had listened to whispers float through the house, how she was expendable, how her name kept coming up as a backup target, how people smiled in her face and sharpened knives behind her back. She never confronted anyone. She just waited. Now, the necklace did the talking. In the gym room, Lauren finally broke the silence. "So, big win today." Morgan smiled, stretching casually. "It felt good." "Who do you think you're using it on?" Lauren asked, testing the waters. Morgan met her eyes in the mirror. "That's the funny thing about power. You don't have to explain it." And just like that, Lauren knew. Whatever plans existed before today, they were dead. Vince feels the heat. Vince tried to play it cool, tried to convince himself that nothing had really changed, but every time someone walked by without checking in with him first, he felt it, control slipping through his fingers like sand. In the storage room, he pulled Morgan aside. "Can we talk?" he said, forcing a smile. Morgan tilted her head. "We're talking." He gestured toward the necklace. "Look, I just want you to know you're safe. You don't need to make any big moves right now." She studied him carefully. The same man who had told her twice this week not to overplay. The same man who had floated her name to two different people as a replacement nominee. "Safe from what?" she asked softly. Vince hesitated. "From chaos." Morgan leaned in just slightly. "Sometimes chaos is the point." And she walked away. For the first time all season, Vince felt small. The house starts to crack. News traveled fast in BB27, and by nightfall, the house felt divided along clear lines. Those who were relieved Morgan had power, and those who were quietly panicking. In the bathroom, Kelsey and Ava whispered near the sinks. "She's going to make a move," Kelsey said. "I can feel it." Ava shook her head. "Good. About time someone did." Meanwhile, Kiana sat with Morgan on the daybed, the night air cooler now as the cameras hummed nearby. "You good?" he asked. Morgan nodded. "Better than good." "You're scaring people," he said, smirking. She smiled back. "That's new for me." Keanu bumped her shoulder lightly. "Whatever you decide, I've got your back." For the first time in the game, Morgan realized she wasn't alone. The ceremony looms. As the night wore on, the pressure thickened. Every conversation stopped when Morgan entered her room. Every laugh felt forced when she wasn't present. The house waited, not for chaos, but for clarity. Because the veto wasn't just a symbol, it was a statement. Was she going to protect an ally? Expose a liar? Flip the entire house upside down? In the have-not room, Vince lay awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying every conversation he'd had with Morgan, every half-truth, every dismissal, every moment he assumed she'd never be in a position to strike back. On the other side of the wall, Morgan was laid just as awake, but calm. She wasn't thinking about revenge, she was thinking about timing. Morning after, same power. Sunlight streamed through the windows the next morning, and there she was again, walking into the kitchen with that same necklace glinting against her hoodie. "Morning, house guests," she said brightly. Silence. Then Keanu clapped. "Still shining, huh?" Morgan laughed. Until further notice. Lauren finally broke the tension. "You look powerful." Morgan poured her coffee. "I feel clear." That scared them more than any threat. The truth starts to surface. By midday, secrets began leaking. People scrambled to secure safety, to shift blame, to offer deals they once mocked. Kelsey approached Morgan quietly in the bedroom. "I heard Vince was pushing your name earlier this week," she admitted. Morgan met her gaze. "I heard that too." "But I didn't agree with it," Kelsey rushed. Morgan nodded. "Good to know." Elsewhere, Ava confronted Vince in the hallway. "You're sweating," she said bluntly. "I'm not," he snapped. "You should be," Ava replied, "because the house knows you got comfortable." And that was the truth. For weeks, Vince had treated power like it belonged to him by default. Morgan had just reminded everyone it didn't. The veto meeting. The living room lights blazed as everyone took their seats. Nervous energy crackled in the air. Morgan said calmly, hands folded over the necklace that had become the most important piece of jewelry in the house. "I have decided that I am going to use the power of veto." Gasps filled the room. Vince stiffened. Ava's mouth dropped open. Morgan turned her head slowly. "And I am removing." She paused, letting tension stretch like a wire. "Keanu." The house erupted. Keanu covered his face in shock. Vince's jaw nearly hit the floor. As for the replacement nominee, the HO voice echoed. Minutes later, a new name was spoken, and the house shattered. Morgan's move didn't just save someone, it redrew the entire map. Aftermath. The Queen walks free. Later that night, as feeds buzzed with reaction and whispers echoed through every room, Morgan stepped into the backyard alone. The necklace still rested around her neck, heavier now with meaning than with metal. She leaned on the railing and let out the breath she'd been holding all week. She hadn't screamed. She hadn't cried. She hadn't begged. She had simply waited and then moved. Behind her, Keanu stepped outside. "You just flipped the house." Morgan smiled. "No, I reminded it that I exist." He laughed. "Same thing." Inside, Vince sat in silence, his control unraveling in real time, and the house finally understood what the viewers had already been saying since the veto win. Morgan out there wearing her veto necklace. And Big Brother will never see her the same way again.
Morgan stepped out into the backyard, the energy shifted. It wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic, it was subtle, but undeniable. The silver veto necklace rested against her chest, catching the afternoon sunlight as she crossed the turf with steady confidence. Conversations slowed, laughs faded, even the pool seemed quieter. Morgan, out there wearing her veto necklace, and everyone felt it. For most of the season, Morgan had been underestimated, labeled as quiet, safe, a number, not a player. But today, the house saw something different, not just a competitor, but a woman holding real power in her hands for the first time. She took a seat near the patio table, crossed her legs, and sipped her iced coffee like nothing else in the world mattered. Inside, Vince stood by the kitchen counter, pretending to clean, but his eyes kept drifting outside. He didn't like what he saw. Comfort, had been his greatest weapon, and now comfort was gone. "Why does that necklace look heavier on her than anyone else who's had it?" he muttered. Keanu, sitting nearby, didn't even look up. Because she earned it, and she waited for it. A different kind of power. Morgan wasn't celebrating loudly. She wasn't calling meetings. She wasn't making promises. That was what made it unsettling. Power in the Big Brother house often came with noise, big speeches, bold threats, frantic campaigning. Morgan was doing none of that. She simply existed with it. Lauren joined her outside. "You're the calmest veto winner I've ever seen." Morgan smiled lightly. "That's because I don't need anyone's permission to use it." Lauren hesitated. "People are nervous." "I know," Morgan replied, eyes scanning the pool. "I was nervous for weeks. It's nice to switch places." The house starts watching her. By evening, the entire house was orbiting around her without saying it out loud. Every hallway conversation paused when she walked by. Every whisper felt louder than before. Ava pulled Kelsey aside in the bathroom. "She's different today." Kelsey nodded. "Yeah, it's like she finally knows where she stands." Kelsey swallowed. "Higher than us." Across the house, Vince tried one last time to regain control. He caught Morgan alone in the storage room. "You're safe this week," he said carefully. "You don't need to shake things up." Morgan met his eyes. "If I was safe, you wouldn't be worried." Vince forced a laugh. "I'm not worried." She tilted her head. "Then why are you talking to me?" He didn't answer. Keanu gets the truth. Later that night, Morgan and Keanu sat on opposite sides of the hammock, the camera lights soft around them. The house buzzed somewhere in the background, but this felt quiet, real. "You never told me what you're doing with it," Keanu said. Morgan looked up at the sky. "I'm not using it for revenge." "Then what?" "For correction." He smiled. "That sounds worse for someone." "Good," she replied. For weeks, Morgan had watched alliances form without her, decisions made without her, narratives written without her name included. Winning the veto hadn't just given her safety, it had given her a voice. And now, she was ready to use it. The morning of the ceremony. The next morning, the necklace was still there, visible, glowing, impossible to ignore. Morgan moved around the kitchen, preparing breakfast like nothing was unusual, but everyone felt the pressure building. Vince barely touched his food. Kelsey avoided eye contact. Ava watched Morgan like she was trying to read the future. Keanu simply smiled. "You ready?" he asked quietly. Morgan nodded. "I've been ready all season." The veto meeting. The living room filled with nervous bodies and quiet breaths. The house guests took their seats as the veto medallion shimmered under the studio lights. Morgan sat straight-backed, calm, steady, unshaken. "I have decided," she said evenly, "to use the power of veto." The room gasped as one. Vince froze. Kelsey's hand flew to her mouth. Ava leaned forward. "I am removing," Morgan continued, her voice unbreaking, "Keanu from the block." Keanu let out a sharp breath, overcome with relief. "That decision is based on truth, loyalty, and balance," Morgan added. When the replacement nominee was announced moments later, the house didn't just react, it broke. Whispers erupted, eyes widened, trust lines shattered. And Morgan? Morgan simply unclasped the necklace and placed it back on the table. Her job was done. After the shock, chaos filled every room after the ceremony. Vince paced the hallway stunned. "She flipped the whole week with one move." "She flipped more than that," Ava replied. "She flipped the season." Kelsey sat silently on her bed, staring at the wall. For the first time, she realized Morgan wasn't just someone drifting through the game. She was someone shaping it. Outside in the backyard, Keanu hugged Morgan tightly. "You just saved my entire game." Morgan smiled. "You earned the chance to keep playing it." "I owe you," he said. She shook her head. "Just don't waste it." The walk of a player. That night, Morgan walked through the house again. No necklace now, but somehow the power was still visible. She moved differently. Taller, steadier, untouchable. People looked at her with new eyes.
Not as background, not as backup, but as a player. Vince watched her from the living room, realizing too late that underestimating her had been his biggest mistake. She had never needed permission. She only needed opportunity. And now she had it. Final moment, as the lights dimmed and the house settled into uneasy sleep, Morgan returned to the backyard alone. The pool reflected the stars. The air felt lighter. She had entered the week as a quiet name on a possible eviction list. She ended it as the center of the game. Morgan out there wearing her Veto necklace. I like it, because sometimes the strongest move in Big Brother isn't shouting your power, it's letting everyone feel it without saying a word.